For 5 years, the account had only one purpose. Every month, a portion of my paycheck went into it. Sometimes a little, sometimes a lot, depending on what expenses looked like that month. But it always grew. It wasn't just money. It was a plan. A small house somewhere quiet, a place that would finally feel like mine. No roommates. No temporary leases. Just something stable. My brother Daniel had always thought that kind of planning was boring. Daniel preferred momentum, fast decisions, fast money, fast results. Which is how he showed up at my apartment one evening with an idea. "I just need a short-term bridge," he said, sitting at my kitchen table like the whole conversation was already settled. "A bridge to what?" I asked. "A deal," he said vaguely. 2 weeks, maybe 3. Then I'll pay you back with interest." I didn't like the sound of it. "How much?" he told me. "It was most of the house fund." "That's not a small loan," I said. Daniel leaned back in the chair. "You've been sitting on that money forever," he said. "What's another month?" I hesitated. "You're sure this is temporary?" "Absolutely," he said. He said it with the kind of confidence that made doubt feel almost unreasonable. He was my brother. So I agreed. A week later I found out where the money went. My parents had invited everyone over for dinner. When I pulled into the driveway, a bright red sports car was sitting at the curb. Daniel stood beside it, talking to my dad. The car looked like something from a dealership showroom. When he saw me, he smiled. "Pretty nice, right?" I stared at the car. "You bought this?" "Leased, technically," he said. "But yeah." My stomach tightened. "With the money I gave you." He shrugged. "It helped." I stepped closer. "You said it was for a deal." "It is," he said. "Image matters in business." My dad laughed, softly impressed. "Successful people invest in presentation," he said. I looked at Daniel. "That money was my house fund." He waved his hand dismissively. "You don't need a house yet," he said. Then he smiled. "Just be patient." The conversation ended there. Not because I agreed, because I realized arguing at that table wouldn't change anything. Everyone had already decided this wasn't serious. So I stopped talking about it. 3 days later I started making calls. The transfer had been informal, just a bank movement between siblings, but the messages we exchanged before it happened were clear. Promises of repayment. Specific timelines. It wasn't enough for a dramatic lawsuit, but it was enough for something else. A formal loan agreement drafted after the fact, referencing the earlier communication. I sent it to him. No threats, no emotional language, just paperwork. He ignored it at first. Then the follow-up notices started arriving. Not from me, from the institutions connected to the sports car. Because when Daniel leased the car, he had used my transfer as proof of liquidity, which meant the financial trail now mattered. A lot. A week after the family dinner, Daniel knocked on my door. The sports car was still outside. But he didn't look as confident as he had earlier. "You're making this way bigger than it needs to be," he said. When I opened the door, I stepped aside and let him in. "You promised to pay it back," I said. "I will," he said quickly. "When?" He didn't answer immediately. "That's what the paperwork is for," I said. He sat down heavily on the couch. "You actually filed this." "I documented it." He rubbed his face. "You could have just talked to me?" "I did," I said. "At dinner." He looked down at the floor. For the first time since the whole thing started, he didn't have a quick reply ready. "You really would have bought a house with that money?" he asked quietly. "Yes." The room was quiet for a moment. Daniel leaned back in the chair. "That car deal depends on showing certain financial stability," he said. "If that agreement becomes official." He didn't finish the sentence. But he didn't need to. The car, the lease, the image he was building, it all depended on the assumption that the money was his to use freely. It wasn't. I sat across from him. "I'm not trying to ruin anything for you," I said. "But that money wasn't yours." He nodded slowly. For once, there was no smirk, no dismissive joke, just the quiet realization that patience and caution, the things he'd always mocked, were the reason I was still in control of the situation. "So what happens now?" he asked. I slid the agreement across the table.
"You sign this,"
I said. "Then we work out a repayment schedule." He looked at the document for a long time before picking up the pen. The sports car stayed outside. But for the first time since he bought it, Daniel looked like he understood exactly what it had cost him.